How's everybody doing? Oh, let me share my screen. Tired. Y'all know how we do it. Got any questions? Put them in the chat box. So I usually go over the videos I did this week, give people time to fall in before we get on the Amazon Cognito, my AWS class. I went live a little earlier, so it's all good. So we're going to hit these real quick before we jump into once again, the AWS Cognito. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I did a FIFA World Cup video. We always know, you see it, the phishing attack. Whenever there's a big, whenever there's a big event, worldwide event, the scammers come out. We know what it's about. So it's common. We still fall for it. But since the FIFA World Cup comes in, cyber scams, I think somebody said they saw over 50 scams being happening just based around the World Cup. And I'm sure it's a lot more. So always something. Once again, we're going to hit the AWS Cognito here shortly. Just going over the videos, giving people time to fall in. TikTok malware, invisible challenge. If you remember a year ago, you could put the filter on to make you invisible. People were saying that you could take the filter off so you could see people unclothed. So people were tricking people by putting malware into that fake challenge so you can see people unclothed. But once again, when you click on it, people were basically putting malware on your machine. So Hyundai's remote app, people were hacking it. They could start the car, honk the horn, and basically drive away with it. That app was the Hyundai app and the Cirrus app. Both were getting taken over. Series, they had Affinity and some other huge brands that was using that particular platform too. So they were particularly vulnerable to getting hacked, right? And we just saw that with the Tesla. So we know those apps are vulnerable. So nothing new there. LastPass got hacked again. I think they left something in the malware in the original one, and they didn't figure it out. So LastPass was getting hacked again. Gail at night, salute. How are you doing? Peace. So be careful with LastPass. I'm still a LastPass fan, and password managers were already there. Oh, I got the bots trying to get me. Bots trying to get me. Guess that means I'm popular. Two is I did one on education. The pluses and minuses about education. We always talk about what is the blueprint, right? I'm old school. You can do degrees, certifications, or boot camps, right? I like to mix those up. I don't think it's one size fit all. There's a lot of things you can do. We know technology is a place to get the bag. So how you get those credentials to get into the industry, right? Is there's many ways to do it. The future is bleak. That part is education as a whole. I believe poor people, if you can't support I appreciate that, yeah. I believe if you can't support your school system with your tax base, they're going to get rid of physical schools for poor communities, and you just automatically going to go school online, right? You prove that you could do it. You could prove that's a viable section. So I worry about them actually just making a school for poor and underserved communities. You just gonna go to school online, and we're gonna hit you up with the the Zoom, the metaverse type education, right? So once again, you can dig into it. And if you had any questions, just get out. And I did one this morning. Power outage, North Carolina. I believe Moore County was hit. Actually, it was a vandalism of a couple substations, and under cybersecurity, that's called critical infrastructure. So I was just commenting that the government's going to be on high alert. It's going to be CISA, critical infrastructure, FBI, CIA. because you don't know if this is a coordinated attack to take down the whole United States. It was just one county, but it was multiple substations that was hacked. So was that a nation state practicing to get ready to take down the whole nation? Is that a domestic terrorist team trying to get attention to take down the whole nation, right? I got a weird comment on this video. One guy said he's glad the Patriots started attacking the United States. So there's groups out here that believes, that critical infrastructure is a target, right? And people don't realize if you don't have power for a month, stuff becomes disarray. So check that out. It's in my video section. I don't want to become the Walking Dead out here, but so just check that out. Like I said, North Carolina is one of their counties. I think it was 40,000 people have no power. I think it was going to be no power for 48 hours. They were down Friday, and I think they're going to get them up Sunday night. So hopefully that happens with no issues. We saw last time when Texas had the storm, it wasn't vandalism, but their grid was struggling once they got hit by a storm. So we know it could be brutal. I think a couple people got deleted on that too. So once again, let's get on that AWS Cognito. A service if you're in that section, architect, developer, DevOps, something you need to know how to do, because every program somehow you're going to need to do authentication and authorization. Authentication is what? Just passwords. How do you get onto your system or infrastructure? And authorization, what can you see, right? So that's what we're about to hit on today. Once again, you know how we do it. Just put any questions in the box, and we'll hit them. Tech or cybersecurity, or a couple society things. So we could chat about it. Oh, this year done flew by. I hope everybody's having a good holiday. I'm just grinding it out, getting ready for 2023, man. Hopefully 2023 is a better year than 2022 for me. So once again, we're gonna hit Amazon Cognito. It's basically a authentication and authorization service, right? So you basically log in, sign in right there. You log into Cognito. It gives you a token to get back in, and that token you can go directly to an AWS service down there or identity pool. You can actually use, and we're going to get into this. You can use your Facebook identity, your Amazon identity, your Instagram, which is basically Facebook. You can use other identities you use on internet to actually log into your infrastructure, right? So that's where the identity pool comes in, and the term federation, right? So we're definitely going to get into that. I'm not a big federation person, but a lot of people like using that. I don't want my application to depend on someone. So if Facebook down, you can't get in my application. I don't like that, but we're going to get into it and see what's going on with it. I see Amazon Cognito serves and scales to millions of users. You can gather your user information and custom attributes. You can verify and save registration in there. You can do sign up, use frictionless self-registration with the customer's user repository, which is the user pool. Because a lot of times you don't want to roll your own security, right? When you got to have people sign up, give their password, check it, keep a repository to do all that. Cognito can do all that for a very cheap service, and that's something you don't have to worry about in your program. Right? It also gives ensure local and adaptive authentication. You can see MFA right there with the they got the thumbprint. There's some other things. Federate through a third-party logon. You can activate federating access, OAuth2, OIDC, activate credential brokers with the identity pools. And these are the resources once you get logged on and access, you can send them to these AWS resources, right? So that's what's I guess cool and great about Cognito. You don't have to roll your own login and password, right? I used to Java 15 years ago, so we had to set up a table. They log on. We had to keep the table. Then two is now you want to say, okay, did they use this device before? There's a lot of things you have to program and roll into that, right? Where Amazon Cognito gives that to you out the box, right? With a couple mouse clicks. And once again, on there, you can get the access to the AWS resources, your apps, needs behind the scenes. So that's the cool thing about it. So what is it? It's identity management, self-registration. Customer first experience with their site is often through self-registration process. Amazon Cognito provides a customizable prepackaged hosted user interface to rapidly get to market and robust set of APIs to build a fully custom self-registration. You can sign up using email, phone number, username for your application. Self-registration process enables users to view and update their profile data, including custom attributes. Reduce help desk calls with self-registration option, such as password reset with the SMS message or email. Salute to Helmet. Second time for today. Appreciate the support. Helmet support me. So, but once again, you got to do your own self-registration to program that. Like I said, I've done that before. That's harder than you think it is, right? Because once again, you got to keep track of who registered, when they register, if they need to reset their password, right? You got to roll out that yourself. Once again, Cognito does that for you out the box. So identity management, once again, the user pools. Cognito provides a secure identity store that scales up to 1 million users. User pools securely store your user profile data for users who sign up directly and for federated users who sign in with external identities. Right. So once again, it's going to keep your user profile when you go back to Amazon or anything. They know what you ordered. They know, what your profile set up and where you live, right? And all that's part of, once again, your customer profile. Amazon Cognito Identity Store is an API-based user repository. The repository API supports up to 50 custom attributes per user, supports for different data types, enforces length, mutability constraints, selecting the required attributes that must be provided by the user prior to completion of a sign-up process. Right, so there's things you can force the user to put in there. It could actually be anything from a credit card to your location to things you need to keep track for your services, right, to provide the thing you need to optimize your customers' enjoyment for your application, right? So once again, you don't have to roll your own. Amazon Cognito provides all that for you. We just talked about the Cognito. You get the Open ID. You can push synchronization. You got the identity pool, right, which is federation with third parties. Then you got the user pool, which is your standard, sign up, sign in, self-registration type stuff. So you can do migration option. You can migrate into Amazon Cognito using either a batch import or just-in-time migration. The batch user leverages a CSV file import processing. Using the just-in-time migration process, a Lambda trigger integrates with the migration process into a sign-in workflow and can retain a user's profile. Right, so if you're already doing something, and most people do stuff in the table, you can export that table that has your username, passwords, and your other custom things. You can import that into Amazon Cognito and just, get started. If you're migrating your stuff from on-prem and you want to bring it to AWS, you can migrate it into Amazon Cognito for your user registration, right? You don't want to maintain that code anymore. Once again, you can migrate into Amazon Cognito. Flexible authentication. Amazon Cognito provides built-in customizable UI for sign up and sign in. You can use Android, iOS, JavaScript, SDK to add user sign in and sign up pages to your apps, right? So you're doing mobile apps, custom apps, you can still integrate Cognito into it. Protect your user accounts and enhance their signing experience with the adaptive authentication. Cognito has advanced security features, detects unusual sign-in activity, attempts for a new location and devices. It assigns a risk score to your activity unless you choose either to prompt user for additional verification or block it. You can verify the identities using SMS or one-time password generator, such as Google Authenticator. Amazon Cognito supports configuration for different password rules for different pools of users. In addition, Amazon Cognito can detect and prevent in real time the reuse of compromised credentials as users sign up and sign in or change their password. Cognito can detect users have entered credentials and have been compromised elsewhere and prompts them to change their password, right? So Amazon, you got to remember, is AWS. Amazon uses this for their authentication. So they have some of the most sophisticated security. So it's called the dark web. They're actually going out the dark web to see if people hacked your username and password or your email. If they find it, that's how they know that your stuff's been compromised, right? They got certain IPs, locations where they know if that user's coming in from that IP, it's probably a foreign national or somebody's going to do something bad. So that's the advanced security Amazon AWS Cognito has into it. That's one reason you can't roll your own for that. I mean, that's top-notch security, and it costs a ton, right? So they're giving you that once again built into Amazon Cognito, right? Federation, we talked about that. As a Federation hub, Cognito, you can use your login via your social media, Apple, Facebook, Google, Amazon, enterprise identity, SAML, just a whole bunch of other websites. Once again, you can use your password there to authenticate through Cognito. Right? You can see that on websites. It says, do you want to use your Facebook or Meta password? Right? It's the same thing. You would be building that into your app, right, for pennies on the dollar. So these are some of the third-party identity that you could use. I didn't know you could use Amazon login, so I'll have to research that. I know I've done Google before. I've done Facebook. Facebook's probably one of the most used providers out there. You can use Twitter. Of course, you can use Cognito's pools because that's what you use. SAML and OpenID or common password federation APIs you can use. You can develop your own right there. And once you use any of those passwords at the bottom, those are the services you can send them to, right? API Gateway, Lambda, EC2, S3, RDS, Kinesis, SNS, right? Which is pub and sub, fan out, and IoT, right? Internet of Things. So once you get in there, you can give your users access to any of those particular services, right? And so that's super cool, right? So once you get in, what are you going to give them access to? They're calling it the last mile of integration. Amazon Cognito secure the last mile integration with an application. The application load balancer and APIs have built-in policy enforcement points that provides access base for Cognito tokens and access AWS resources. The Credential Broker of Amazon Cognito, also known as Cognito Identity Pools, provides single sign-on access to AWS resources such as Amazon DynamoDB, the S3 bucket, the Lambda process serverless, and Amazon services. You can dynamically map different roles to support least privileges to access certain services. Right. Once again, when you program in the AWS, if you're at any of the standard jobs, architect, developer, or DevOps, most of the times you're going to be doing some with Amazon Cognito. If your company or business at any size, you're definitely going to go to use Cognito. It costs too much to roll your own, and you get so many advanced security features. So you can also do machine-to-machine authentication. You can use OAuth client credential flow, Amazon Cognito, once again, machine-to-machine authentication, ensuring a secure experience between machines, right? So a lot of times I've had machines that wake up and do web service calls and connect to other machines. So that's where the machine-to-machine authentication comes through, right? So that's when you would use it. And I think I got a flow chart of that coming up. So yeah, so I got a third-party service there. I got my service APIs I expose. So when the third party uses Amazon Cognito right there, credentials, I send them a token to access my services with. Then I verify that that's the token that was passed to that third party, right? So that's extra security. All right. So I've got the third party that's going to reach out to me. It could be everything from a payment or some services I provide. I could be reaching out to the post office for address verifications. There's a number of things you could use this for, right? But I always remember machine to machine, you still want to validate and make sure the machine only has access to the things it needs to do its job, right? So as part of Cognito, it actually integrates with customer experience, the customer outreach, user data approach to a driven customer acquisition and retention, launch customer outreach campaigns and track engagement. It's called Amazon Pinpoint. Pinpoint provides analytics to for Amazon Cognito based on user activity, and Amazon Cognito enriches your user data for pinpoint campaigns, right? So when you actually get to a certain level, you want to start sending campaigns to people. So what is a campaign? I'm targeting a certain branch of my user branch to get them to buy something, get them to do something, or get them to elect somebody, right? So what Amazon does for their campaign is when you log on Amazon every day, what it sends you, these are the things you would like to buy, right? Those are campaigns because those are basically done by what you buy, what dollar amount you're spending, where's your zip code at, right? So they doing all that to come up, put all that information in pinpoint that they're getting for Cognito, right? Then they could target certain things and people for certain purchases, right? A friend of mine was actually running for a political office, and they do campaigns to target voters, right? So I'm actually thinking about using this to help people in campaigns target constituents to figure out who to get them to vote for certain people, right? And part of your campaign too is what getting donors and people to give you money, right? And that's really what Amazon does when they target you for. Do you want to buy this, or I think this is for you, right? They're just trying to increase their sales, right? But once again, shout out to Amazon. They got a service for everybody. So that's Amazon Pinpoint. It actually uses the data from Amazon Cognito, and it actually flows between people. Right? So incognito, remember, you got people registering, right? When you people registering, they're giving once again zip code. You can ask for income verification. You can ask for a ton of stuff, and once again, Pinpoint's going to use that to send out campaigns to certain people. So, and this is Pinpoint, right? So on this side is the Cognito OpenID user entity pool. And those side, right, is synchronization, your APIs, and data sync, right? So that's both sides of Cognito. Once again, Pinpoint using analytics from Amazon Cognito user pools. Cognito user pools are integrated with Pinpoint to provide analytics for Cognito user pools to enrich the user data for Amazon Pinpoint campaigns. Pinpoint provides analytics and target campaigns to drive users' engagements to mobile app users using push notification. Pinpoint Analytics supports Cognito pools. You can track user pool signups, sign-ins, failed authentication, daily active users, monthly active users in an Amazon Pinpoint console. You can drill down into data for different data ranges, attributes such as device platform, device locations, app versions. You can also set up custom attributes for your apps. Those can be used to segment your users on your Amazon Pinpoint, sending them target push notifications. You can choose share your attributes data with Pinpoint in the analytics tabs. In Amazon Cognito console, Amazon Pinpoint creates additional endpoints for user email address and phone numbers, right? We just talked about that, right? So that lets you know kind of behind the scenes what Amazon is doing to you, right? They're running campaigns, and two is a lot of people and a lot of business runs certain campaigns, right? And a lot of times campaigns can be expensive to run. The cool thing is Amazon gives you the services to set them up for you. And the cool thing is you can actually reach out to people in your similar business and have them pay for the campaigns, and you send out stuff for them and you, right? So there's a number of ways to do it. So this is a solution overview. In general design, solutions use Amazon Fraud for detected supervised machine learning and models, along with customized Amazon Cognito to implement real-time new users fraud prevention mechanisms for online webs and mobile applications. You can customize Amazon Cognito sign workflow. The following diagram illustrates a high-level architecture, right? So we were just talking about pinpoint. Now we're switching over to fraud with the pinpoint, right? There's a lot of people doing fraud. There's a lot of people stealing credit cards, right? Doing malicious things, right? So at the top in the green, you see it right there. You can get the Amazon fraud detector. The cool thing is, this is what they use during Christmas for billions of transactions. So you know they got some of the best metrics on the planet. So you're doing your campaigns at the bottom, right? You got your Amazon Cognito as people not sign up with their username or email, right? You can actually send them to Amazon Fraud Detector, and it's going to ask them. Once again, we talked about it, but at a higher level, is this a bad IP? Has the dark web seen it? Has this particular way they're signing up been how fraud people are using, right? Are people trying to use gift cards, right? That could be a big fraud detector, that you don't accept gift cards because a lot of times, depending on what you're buying, could be used for fraud, right? So there's different ways. And once again, Amazon got a ton of stuff, but a lot of stuff, once again, is coming off of Cognito because you got people self-registering and you're getting their information, right? Then you could push it to Pinpoint or you could push it to Amazon Fraud. Then you could start doing stuff with it, right? You can do, once again, on the customer experience. You have business agility and amplify. There's a AWS Amplify is a set of purpose built tools that lets front end web apps and mobile developers quickly and easily build full stack application on AWS with the flexibility to leverage the breadth of AWS services. With Amplify, you configure web or mobile app backend using Amazon Cognito to connect your apps in minutes, visually build a web front UI, and easily manage apps and contents outside the AWS console, ship faster and scale apps. So what AWS does, it helps you build your application. And behind the scenes, right, you're just using Amazon Cognito for, once again, your authentication and authorization. So AWS Amplify, you saying you're building your app and you need registration and user password and all that good stuff. Behind the scenes, this is going to spin up AWS Cognito. So even Amazon and their other services and projects are using Amazon Cognito behind the scenes, right? It's just letting you know it's a real tested out service that they're really backing, right? And once again, you get Cognito provides a robust sets of hooks and extensions for fully customization of authentication, registration, and user migration. For example, self-registration flow can be augmented with customer identity proofing and account verification, and the login process can be extended to create a custom flow. At the bottom, you can use Java, C++, PHP, Python, Golang, Ruby, .NET, and JavaScript. So it's like they got everything covered. So once again, it's just a great tool, and we'll be labbing on that pretty soon. So I've been labbing on that stuff, so I'm actually really enjoying it, right? So really, I'm getting the hang of it. From security, it's got bot detection. You can collaborate with the Amazon firewall, offer advanced bot detection. Shout out to Gail. We were having bots just a minute ago. Features that can help you save your organization from paying for automated accounts. Once again, AWS is compliance. You can run it with your PCI, which is credit card, SOC, HIPAA if you're doing stuff for hospitals, ISO. So once again, Amazon's got it approved to do government work and state work, and so that's what we need. You know, we're trying to get the big bag, so we need to be in those big sectors. How's your class going, Gail? I know you were thinking about taking some other classes, some other IT stuff. So how's that going for you? Amazon Cognito supports a number of identities. We talked about that: identity-based policies, policy actions, temporary credentials, service roles, and service link roles. So, you know, when you use Cognito and you need to get to your AWS resources, these are the things you can use behind the scenes to give yourself access. I'm really big on temporary credentials. I only want them to last for 3 or 4 hours, right? Then that way, if somebody hacks you, those credentials aren't available, right? So that's kind of really what I've been kind of focusing on. And it shows you right there some of the ones: authentication service, single sign-on, multi-factor session. We just talked about authorization, roles, rules, attribute, privilege. Directory services are big: Active Directory, ASFDF, meta synchronization directory, and user management. Right, that's what we talked about: self-signing, delegation, provisioning, and deprovisioning. When we fire people, what? What's going on, Gail? Not the sad face. Reach out to me if you need anything. Professionalblackops@gmail.com. Yeah, that I know you ain't. That course is super hard. I've taught it for a little bit, and it's a brutal class. It's a brutal class. Just stay in the industry. Pivot to something else. Pivot to something else. Um, I'll put this in the link. That shows somebody misconfiguring an AWS configuration, and they actually hacked AWS. Yeah, they actually hacked AWS Cognito because there was misconfiguration. So that's the website. Go check it out. So yeah, people shout out IT a lot, Gail, but sometimes it ain't no joke. Once again, we were talking about the compliances that Cognito security and protection. Cognito aligns with AWS shared security model for data protection. AWS provides security of the cloud, while you, as the organization or the program, you are responsibility for what's in the cloud. Right? For additional layer of security, you can support MFA and encryption data at rest and in transit for industry standard. Once again, those were the compliances we just looked at there. So let's just talk about some of the standard architecture that's used with Amazon Cognito. I always call this the base one, and I think people mostly use when they first get started out the box, right? You got your standard user, application load balancer, right? Then you put your authentication, you can actually hook it to your application load balancer. Of course, it's under port 443 HTTPS, so you can put authenticate. So when it goes there, it can send you to their Amazon Cognito. They give you a default user with username and password. Right, once you sign in, all right, it'll send you to your resource. Mostly those are EC2. Then you return your cookie back to that client, because most time when you go back, you got to go back to the same resource, right? That's your session data on it, right? So that's basically the standard setup when you're at a business, right? Web page, ALB, EC2, auto scaling group, Cognito for your authentication, right? We got our certificate, so we can get our TLS and our HTTPS secure, right? So once again, that's the standard setup for level one. I call it a level one company, right? So that's what your once again is your standard setup. And once we move up, right, I think this is what kind of people are going for in the future. See, with my man JM in the house, I know with Cisco switches and routers, you can specify routes. And DRs, can you do the same here? Yeah. Um, if you go back to, and I'll touch on it. If you go back to Route 53 at the top tells you that routes to what region you want to go to. So yeah, and AWS family is called Route 53. That's your DNS. Your DNS says, I'm going to go to this particular region. If that region's down, go ahead and route it to this different region, right? So that's how you would do that from a DR perspective. I think I think I did that in the video, but yeah, Route 53 handles that route to a DR site. And you write a lot of times your Cisco switches, because we one of my clients actually used Cisco switches, and we actually did that. If this data center was down, you actually went to this other city, and Cisco routing did all that kind of behind the scenes. But the DNS, along with the DNS, right? But just like you said, just Cisco routers, also along with because our virtual boxes would automatically go to our DR site, right? So we was using virtualization with Cisco, actually with DNS, so it all has to work together, Jam. What's cool with AWS, it builds all that stuff in there so it'll work. So once again, you will use your Route 53. That's going to be your DNS service, right? So your DNS service says, okay, this region's good. If it's down, send out my traffic to the other region. Then part of your DR sites over there is I have a master slave of my database. So if the master goes down, I'm already replicating to my DR site. So it can tell if that health is gone. It'll automatically spin up on my DR site and make that the master database, right? So you got to make sure all this stuff syncs up. Number one, so you don't lose any transaction. It's also called RTO, return of operations, and RPO is return of point of operations. How much data are you willing to lose in there, JM? So are you willing to lose a minute, 4 hours, 6 hours, a week, right? The more data you're willing to lose, the cheaper it is, the less data you will, right? Now you're talking about a hotspot on 24/7, right? So they call it your operation, RTO, return operation, RPO, return point operations, how much data you're willing to lose. But the second, let me know if that makes sense, JM. So the other part of that too is the next level in architecture people is people want to use APIs and Lambda, right? EC2s mean I got Linux and Windows I'm running all the time. Lambda is actually serverless. So I got my Java, my C# running in my Lambda. When it actually gets hit, it's going to spin up the server underneath. I don't have to management. I don't have to change it. And the only time I pay for it is when I'm getting hit, right? For transactions or some data or something, right? So people are trying to go to serverless, right? Because theoretically you save more money, right? And once again, my Amazon Cognito is in my service because my API takes the place of my load balancer. So this right here is going to hook to my Amazon Cognito, gets my self-registration, my deregistration. If I want to reset my password, it's going to have all my users into it, right? So when I hit, it's going to come off my API, go to Amazon Cognito, then goes to my my Lambda, which is serverless, then my Amazon DynamoDB, which is my NoSQL database. It can scale up to 2 gazillion users. That's super big in Amazon, right? So this, I call this my second level, right? Because stuff moving serverless. My API, my Amazon API gateway serverless, my Lambda languages and production, my business logic serverless, right? So all of this is, once again, serverless, right? I don't have to worry about it. The only time I pay for what I use, right? So I believe that's the next. You're welcome. I think I'm gonna do a video on Route 53 and DR site. When I took my last couple of certifications, they were hitting hard on DR sites. I got the Amazon Associate Architect. They're real big on DR sites. Then two is when you mix that with your on-prem and your AWS, right? That's when you need to understand your Cisco, your virtual machine, your DNS, how you're gonna fail over to a different on-prem data center, right? Amazon's got the AWS part set up, but how do you hook up AWS to your on-prem so when you DR, right, it's all seamless and you don't have to do anything, right? That's really the goal. It's harder than you think, but I've been in it. We used to exercise this a lot. So that's an AW. That's an Amazon API. Is that a static IP? It's an Amazon API, but you control it because you're actually putting your services in there and where you want them to go, right? So when I set up my Amazon API, I had a Professor Black Ops data store. Then that data store, like when I said get data, it would call get data in the Lambda, and it would pull that information out of my DynamoDB. Or if I said insert API, it would use my insert Java and insert it into my DynamoDB, right? So when you say API, right, it's your API that you create under Amazon's service, right? So then two is part of the Route 53 is I get my PBO certificate, right? So I can do SSL, right? Then when you look at it in a web browser, right, you have the lock right here. Then that lock comes up, right, with all that encrypted, right? But so now, so the Amazon API is actually your API that you create, it's not your static IP is actually up in the DN up into your Route 53 or DNS. And I'll show a picture of that, JM. Your DNS actually routes it to your API. So your static IP is up with your Route 53 because your DNS is saying, like I bought a DNS that says www.professionalblackops.com, right? So that will be actually my static IP from my Route 53 that's going to send it to my API or my or my ALB, right? And I'll pull a picture of that right after this, like I said, because I'm almost done. The next thing too is what I'm really going to focus on in 2023. Shout out to Women in Linux. Shout out to Tam. Is EKS is Docker, right? EKS version down here is Docker's, right? And that's really the next level. Most big companies are going Docker and that whole. So you got your application load balancer list. You get your Docker containers, right? You have multiple containers, and how does that get hooked? And JM, if you see on here, this is what you need really for you got your Route 53, your Amazon Cognito, and your certificate managers. That's your www.professionalblackops.com. That's going to have your static IP address, right? So these things work together, right, to get the traffic to flow through here. And once again, this is Docker. So that's really what most big companies are going through, and most big companies are really going through. Docker or Kubernetes. Those are kind of the two super hot buttons. So I'm getting comfortable enough with. I'm comfortable here. I'm getting comfortable here. So I think the next part for me is here, right? Getting the Docker, getting the Kubernetes, getting that spinning that up, right? And I think once again, that's what the big companies are using. They believe they get economies of scale by using Docker, right? Instead of Lambda, instead of ALB, right? So once again, that's Docker. So that's the second level. Once again, it still works with Cognito. Even with Docker, you need to get people authenticated and use authorization. Let's say, okay, so you have to create like your own schema and put it in Amazon API. Yep. So usually you do, I'll probably do a video of that. Basically, you just say, this is my, what's the term for that? This is my method. Then underneath there, it's going to be like, get something, insert, delete, or put, right? So if I'm a bookstore, get a book, put a book, delete a book, right? Or register to get a book, right? So each one of those are things in your APIs that you're going to do. So you building up your business logic in your API to flow back, right? So once again, you're going to get a book, delete a book, return a book, add a book, right? So those are the things you're going to put in your API because those are business logic you're going to have it called, right? Because usually when you do an API, it's just business logic you calling to that services to do something for you, right? But you're creating it because it's your app, right? So if, once again, PBO bookstore, I'm gonna get a book, put a book, delete a book, register to get a book, maybe get credit cards to buy the book, right? Each one of those are part of the API, right? Part of my business logic that I'm gonna give you access to from the web to do those particular services. And this is using, once again, ECS, which is Docker, but instead of using ALB, this using the gateway. And you see that right there. JM, they got pet store pets proxy, right? So you go to the Docker with pets, and you get to the pets table, and you do what you need to do. Over here, they're talking about food. So those are the APIs you give to your users. Here, when you log into the Cognito users, you get a token that gives you access to what you need to do and which services you need to get at, right? This could be a premium service versus a basic service, right? Or so you can log on and pass back different keys to do different things, right? Depending on how you log in and what roles I give you, right? So once again, this is just architecture at a high level. So we just sitting in it. This is more from a programming level. Once again, I'm Gary getting the job. So that's Angular. So if you're a programmer, that's Angular. This is the SSL. That's going to be AWS certificate. Then you get to S3. Once again, that's the ALB. The EC2s down at the bottom. Once again, that's Cognito getting that up. So if I was doing Java, this is my front end. I'm gonna get the username and passwords with roles, what they can get to. Then this tells you, okay, am I getting to an S3, which is basically just a file system, or EC2 is basically programs I got running using Linux or Windows with a load balancer in front of it, right? So that's Cognito connecting to those things, right, at that level. Let's see what JM says. Let's see. Are you post requests usually avoided in the API? If there's no proper validation, I'm guessing this can be out. Yeah, I don't know. I'm always post requesting, right? Two is all that's going to be SSL. Let's scroll back. I think it showed SSL on all of that at the bottom. So yeah, see the SSL right there. So hopefully we have an encrypted JM. Let me get that off of there and bring that out. No, but you're right. So what will we do to prevent that? Because I just read API is the new attack service, right? So with the API or just website, right? All that's secured with SSL, right? Meaning it's encrypting, right? Which makes it harder to hack. And two is the slide before this, right? When you log in, I'm giving you a certain token. If you don't have that token, you couldn't get to a certain API. Another security check, right? And then two is Amazon Cognito. If you roll up to the top, one of the big deals we would do would be ensure local adapted. That's MFA. So hopefully before, depending on the level of security we want to put on that JM, I will make you MFA in there before you could run that particular API. If we're talking about something secure, especially if we business to business, you would have to run the as soon as you hit that API, it would hit you with MFA. Once you MFA, you don't have to do that once. It would save your token and you could do the rest of it. So I would force you to MFA. So those are probably the three things off of the top of my head. But you're right. We got to put the thing in place so the hackers won't get us. But so let's go. I would do the MFA there, which is the adaptive. And we talked about MFA here in a couple places. And let's go back to the bottom, which is here. So once again, we get the Cognito, we get those tokens. So somehow you have to get in the man in the middle, take that. I'll have to steal your phone, right? Because I'm doing MFA. Then a lot of times too, depending on your users base, if I know you're coming from a certain company, I'm only letting that CIDR block from that company connect to my API services, right? If it's something business and it's not an internet business or a service I'm trying to buy, if it's specific to a company or persons, I probably get their IP addresses right, so I can whitelist their IP address to only call that API too. So there's 3 or 4 different levels of security JM we would put in place depending on the level of classification of that data. Meaning if it's high, right, nuclear stuff or electric grid, we was talking about that earlier, right? I would do certain things, or so there's a lot of levels of what AWS is cool security you could put in before you would let somebody hit your service. So. Let's see. Let me know if you have any other questions. Let's see. I'm gonna look up that real quick, JM, with the Route 53 in there, and then we could just kind of break that down. Scorpio in the house. What's up, big bro? Sorry, I like the stream workout. Oh, that's true. Just check me out on the restream. I understand work hours getting there. I want you to get that bag, man. Christmas coming up, man. Christmas is expensive. So I appreciate you, man. Just check me out on replay. I always appreciate the support. To the AWS 53. Let's see. Had different. Okay, is that one? JM. So if Route 53 at the top, once again, that's your DNS. So this is your primary site over here. So it would keep coming over here till this site went down, or if this site, for some reason, somebody attacked it or somebody just attacked their infrastructure. Route 53 says health check. So if for some reason they couldn't ping the web server here or ping your VPC and get a health check, it would automatically roll over to your standby. Right. So there's a couple ways to do it, but this is basically the I'll call this the basic one. You got a primary. If this goes down, it just automatically rolls over to your standby. The VPCing at the back is to making sure I keep my databases updated, or whatever services I have over here. I need to make sure they get replicated over here, right? So if this goes down, my latest data is already over here, and this can just starts working right without any intervention. Once again, my database is already replicating over here, so it has the most up-to-date data, and I could just continue to run without any problems. So from a Route 53, and two is you could actually have Cisco actually running inside your AWS and copying over your traffic, right? So it could be seamless, right? So I've actually seen a couple people do that. The reason they have their Cisco inside their AWS is they want their own prim and their Cisco to look like one big network, right? Those are huge clients that do that, right? Fortune 1000 companies. The average person is not doing that, but I've seen that done. But usually in that, right? If that primary goes down, you automatically wants to go to standby. That VPC pairing is right. As I got databases. DynamoDB actually has something called a global table behind the scenes, and I'll bring that up. It actually do that for you at that extra cost. Yes and no, JM. I'll touch on that real quick. Let me show this DynamoDB. Dynamo, if I could spell DynamoDB. I think it was global table. The global table. So yeah, that's a good picture of that. So a lot of people pick Dynamo. Oh. Let's see, I got a picture of it. Where's that at? And for some reason, I am dragging and tired. Mm-hmm. It's depending on how you do it, JM. It could be expensive, but you could do it relatively cheap. But okay, there's the picture of it. Here, I'm gonna close that. Oh, I moved it. There it is. Let's see how that looks. So behind the scenes with the database, JM, see those are in different regions. So DynamoDB behind the scene is automatically syncing your database for you, right? So you don't have to sync anything up, right? It does that for you, JM. So you save money right there. So if you do DynamoDB and these in different regions, like we had before, behind the scenes, they're doing asynchronous replication. So if A goes down, B's already good. B goes down, C's already synced, right? So all that's behind there. You do have to pay extra, JM. Do you have to pay extra for standby service, or is including the file? Anything up, you have to pay extra. But the cool thing is there's something called a pilot. I'll look that up real quick. So what I do in my standby, I have everything ready to run, but it's not running. In the auto scaling group, I can actually set it to 0, meaning there's no thing spun up until I start getting traffic, right? So if I leave it at 0, right, none of my web servers are being spun up. I got to pay for a little bit for my Amazon DynamoDB replicating over there. But if I do my auto scaling group for zero, my S3 bucket, they're super cheap, right? You can have it be dirt cheap, and the only time you get charged is once you get traffic start going over that jam. You can start spinning up web servers now because it's hot. You can start spinning up app servers, but while it's over there, I can just have all my auto scaling groups set at zero, meaning nothing's up. But once it starts getting traffic, it'll automatically start auto scaling back. What's up, Wayne? Shout out to him in Mexico. Let me know if that makes sense, JM. I'm mumbling. I'm tired, but the thing you have to pay for is DynamoDB is a little more expensive because you get this replication behind the scene. Now I don't have to do it. I can do a read replica, which is cheaper. But this right here, remember we talked about RPO, return a point, how much data you're willing to lose. If my answer is zero, right, I'm gonna do DynamoDB global table in the back, and I'm not gonna lose any data because it's automatically replicating, right? If I do a read replica and it takes like 5 or 6 minutes for it to get over there and replicate, right, I could lose 15 minutes, right? So the question is, how much is that data important to you? And two is what's the volume of that too? So there's things when you do that. Once again, it's called RTO and RPO, and depending on what those numbers is, depending on how your architect and your cloud architect design it for those particular business requirements, right? Because I always remember those are business requirements. So I work with the business. How much data you want to lose? How much is it hours, minutes? How quickly do you want it to fail over, right? Is this mission critical, right? So what's up, Wayne in the house? Glad you could join me. Oh yeah, high availability. And two is like I said, you can make it cheap as you want, or but two is you got like we talked about, how quickly do you want to come up and how much data do you want to lose, right? Once again, if it's zero, I'll do my DynamoDB. This is really what Amazon's pushing DynamoDB hard. They want you to do DynamoDB. I could spend a little more money. I could cut up on Amazon global tables. Then once again, it'll automatically replicate. Once again, I got certified, so they were real big on this in the DR section. Once again, I got the associate architect. They were hitting big. It's like 4 levels of DR you can do, depending on, like JM said, how much money you want to spend, how quickly you want to come up, how much data you're using, right? And once again, you want to lose no data, I'm going to go with global tables. It's going to cost you a little more. It's going to cost you a little more. So that's all I got. Let me know if you got any more questions, JM, or anybody else. Once again, I'm just working on my AWS. I've been grinding on that. Hopefully 2023, I'm probably going to do something professionally with that too. Is once again, these are the architectures I've been looking at. And JM just asked me about the DR process of that. And once again, I'm gonna start labbing some of this. I just been busy. Application load balancer, API serverless, Docker ECS. You can use Docker Kubernetes. Both of those are super hot, right? And this is API with Docker. I'm a Java guy, so I always look at Docker. But once again, if I want to be an architect, I need to understand Docker and Kubernetes, when to use which. And two is a lot of times when you go to a client, they already picked out what they want you to use, right? You just got to be able to set it up and help them get set up and get comfortable, do a lot of that grunt work, right? We talked about AWS CloudWatch, right? You want to set up your dashboard so you can see what stuff is happening, how stuff are moving, right? And that's some of that too, is in make sure your disaster recovery site is optional and working well, right? So once again, just as an architect, just getting comfortable with different architects and different services. That's one thing about AWS. They got a ton of services. They just came out with 10 new services. They had their big re-event conference. So I'll probably do a video on that. There were some cool services, but I'm just trying to learn the foundation services. When you go into a business, what are they likely to use? API gateway, ECS, probably DynamoDB, Route 53, Amazon Cognito, Certificate Manager, ALB, API, Lambda, ALB, load balancers. So I'm just trying to get the foundation stuff before I start getting the exotic stuff, just getting super comfortable with it once again. So I'll be labbing later on with Cognito, making sure I'm getting it to set up right. If I'm using the ALB, if I'm using the API gateway, if I'm using it with Docker, if I'm using it with Kubernetes, right? Just making sure I'm comfortable using it in different architectures, right? Because 9 times out of 10, especially when you go in as a resource, once again, they already got their architecture fixed. Their CTO or architect, they need help with setting it up or getting it tested or DevOps or just getting it to run. They kind of pick what their um, current development staff is comfortable with, right? So usually they don't let you pick new stuff because their people's already comfortable with something. They already got their resources already figured out, right? Now they might migrate to something else, but they need to get whatever their base set up before they start looking at other technologies and stuff. A lot of times it's just super expensive to migrate to other stuff, right? People like to do it a little bit at a time, bits and pieces of it anyway. So once again, I'll just hang around for any questions. If not, PBO gonna go take a little walk. It's a little warmer in the Midwest. It's about 41, so I'm gonna slide me in a quick walk. And PBO got to lose some weight in 2023. So I thank people for joining me. Shout out to Wayne Wallace. He came to my booth. I did one on the North Carolina was down. Their electric grid was sabotaged. it was vandalized by a group. So we talked about that. So I'm sure more and more information. Go check it out. So I just did it. I appreciate that, Gail. Everybody go support Gail. She's growing. Her channel's growing. She's always helping me. So I definitely want to give her a shout out for helping me. Everybody have a good week. Monday's almost here. Man, I got to get ready. I got to do a little work next week, man. I'm waiting for the holiday again. I need that Christmas. I got to take me a couple of vacation days out during Christmas. So I'm tired. So what's get Professor Black Ops? I'm out. Everybody have a great week. Let's get the bag. It's out here to get. Let's go. I'm out. Everybody have a great week. Oh, let's see. Oh, I killed it. Cancel. Let's see if I can scroll down. Oh, yep.